The morning rain painted gray streaks across the windows of Sterling Tower as Owen Sterling pressed his phone against his ear with barely controlled frustration. His business partner's voice crackled through the speaker, cold and insistent. "The merger needs your signature today. Owen, the investors are getting nervous." Owen stared out at the city below, watching tiny figures rush through puddles toward destinations that suddenly seemed more purposeful than his own. At 35, he had built a technology company worth millions, earned the respect of industry leaders, and achieved every goal his father had set before dying 5 years ago. Yet standing here in his corner office, surrounded by awards and achievements, he felt hollow. "The merger eliminates 200 jobs, Preston. We promised those employees job security when we acquired their company. Business is business. Your father would have understood that." Owen closed his eyes against the familiar pain of being compared to a man he could never quite measure up to, even in death. His father had built Sterling Technologies from nothing, and Owen had spent the last decade trying to fill shoes that felt 3 sizes too large. "I need more time to review the terms. You have until 5 today. After that, the deal disappears, and so does our quarterly growth projection." The call ended, leaving Owen alone with the weight of decisions that affected hundreds of lives. Some people collected stamps. He collected impossible choices across the city. Claire Bennett knelt beside her powder blue delivery van, grease streaking her cheek as she coaxed the stubborn engine one more time. The wrench slipped, scraping her knuckles, but she barely noticed the sting. Her mind was calculating costs she could not afford and time she did not have. "Come on, Betsy, just one more delivery?" The van coughed, sputtered, and died with a mechanical wheeze that sounded like surrender. Claire sat back on the wet pavement, staring at the vehicle that represented everything her father had worked for before his heart gave out 3 years ago. Bennett's mobile bakery had been his dream, his escape from the corporate kitchen that had consumed his health. "Enjoy." Her phone buzzed with a reminder. Corporate breakfast delivery due at Sterling Tower. 9 a.m. The order represented half her rent money. Missing it meant more than financial disaster. It meant admitting she had failed to keep the one promise that mattered. "I am not giving up, Dad," she whispered to the cloudy sky. "Sullivans do not quit." But even as she said it, the bank statement in her pocket burned with a different truth. 3 months behind on van payments. 2 months behind on commercial kitchen rental. 1 month away from losing everything, Claire made a decision born of desperation and determination. She loaded 6 boxes of her best pastries into her backpack and 2 shopping bags, called for a rideshare, and headed toward downtown with the kind of stubborn hope that had sustained her through 3 years of 18-hour days and mounting debt. Sterling Tower rose 40 stories above the historic district. Its modern glass exterior, a sharp contrast to the older buildings surrounding it. Claire rushed through the marble lobby, her second-hand coat dripping rain, her wild auburn curls escaping from beneath a hand-knit hat that had seen better winters. The elevator doors opened with a tired sigh, revealing a tall man in an expensive charcoal suit, who looked like he carried the weight of boardroom decisions in the set of his shoulders. He glanced up from his phone, and for just a moment, their eyes met. His were gray, like storm clouds, and held a sadness so deep it made Claire's breath catch. Owen had been expecting another ordinary Tuesday filled with meetings and carefully managed crises. He had not been expecting the woman who stepped into the elevator, carrying hope disguised as bakery boxes, her presence somehow warming the small space with an energy he could not name. She smelled like vanilla and cinnamon, like Sunday mornings from a childhood that felt like someone else's memory. 37th floor, please," she said, her voice slightly breathless from her rush through the lobby. Owen nodded and pressed the button. Noting how carefully she held her boxes, as though they contained something precious, the elevator lurched upward with the reluctant effort of machinery that had served this building for decades. They were between the 19th and 20th floors when it happened, not with a dramatic crash or a terrifying fall, but with a gentle shudder and a mechanical sigh, as if the old elevator had simply decided it needed a moment to rest. The lights flickered once, then held steady, casting them both in the amber glow of emergency lighting. Oh no, Claire breathed, looking up at the floor indicator that had stopped moving. This cannot be happening. Not today. Owen was already reaching for the emergency phone, his practiced efficiency kicking in automatically. Do not worry. These systems have backup protocols. We will be out in 10 minutes. But even as he spoke reassuringly, he felt the familiar tightness in his chest. The sensation of walls closing in, of control slipping away. His breathing became shallow. Sweat began to bead on his forehead. Despite the cool air, Claire set her boxes carefully on the floor and watched. This composed businessman began to unravel before her eyes. She recognized the signs immediately. Her father had experienced panic attacks during the final year, and the business was failing, and bills kept arriving like accusations. Hey, she said softly, moving closer. Look at me. Owen's eyes found hers, wide with a terror that had nothing to do with being trapped, and everything to do with being unable to fix something, unable to control the outcome. What is your name? She asked gently. Owen Sterling. Well, Owen Sterling, I am Claire Bennett, and I think you need to sit down before you fall down. She guided him to the floor with surprising strength for someone so petite, then opened one of her boxes and pulled out a cupcake topped with swirled buttercream and a delicate sugar flower. Sugar helps the brain think better. My dad always said that. Owen stared at the offering, this small act of kindness from a stranger who had every reason to be panicking herself. Slowly, he accepted the cupcake, and when he bit into it, the sweetness seemed to cut through the fog of his anxiety like sunlight through storm clouds. Better? Claire asked, settling down beside him with a casualness that suggested being trapped in elevators was just another Tuesday adventure. Better, he admitted, surprised to find it was true. Good. Now then. Claire pulled a bobby pin from her hair, letting another curl spring free. I fix broken kitchen equipment almost daily, so I know a few tricks about mechanical things. Let me see what I can do about getting some air moving in here. Owen watched in amazement as this woman approached a ventilation panel he had not even noticed, worked the bobby pin into a small opening with practiced ease, and somehow coaxed the system back to life with the kind of practical magic that came from years of making things work with limited resources. How did you know how to do that? Claire settled back down beside him, close enough that he could feel her warmth. When you spend years keeping a 20-year-old van running on determination and duct tape, you'll learn to see how things connect. Besides, panic does not solve problems. Problem-solving solves problems. For the first time in recent memory, Owen found himself genuinely curious about another human being beyond their business utility or social value. What is in the boxes besides miracle cures for panic attacks? Claire's face lit up with the kind of pride that came from creating something beautiful with her own hands. Cupcakes, Danish pastries, some lemon tarts that are my grandmother's secret recipe. I have a corporate breakfast delivery upstairs. Or I did anyway. Not sure they will still want them after this. Owen caught something in her voice beneath the practical acceptance, a weariness that went deeper than this moment's disappointment. Your business, he said quietly. It is struggling. It was not a question, and Claire felt her defenses rise instinctively. She had heard that tone before. The gentle pity of successful people who saw her dreams as a phase she would eventually outgrow. We are managing, she said, her chin lifting with visible pride. I did not mean it that way. Owen paused, recognizing the walls going up. He had spent years perfecting his own emotional armor. He knew the signs. I just know what it feels like to carry something heavy, to feel responsible for keeping something alive that maybe wants to die. Something in his voice made Claire look at him more carefully. This man in his expensive suit, with his obvious wealth and success. What could he possibly understand about struggle? But his eyes, those storm cloud eyes, held depths of pain that money could not solve. What do you carry? She asked softly. Owen was quiet for so long that Claire wondered if he had heard her. Then, barely above a whisper, my father's expectations. My best friend's death. A company that was supposed to change the world but mostly just makes rich people richer. He looked at her, and she saw something raw and honest that took her breath away. Some people collect stamps. I collect responsibilities I never asked for. Claire felt her heart crack open just a little. Here was a man who understood the weight of inheritance. Not just money or property, but the invisible burdens of being left behind to carry other people's dreams. My dad built his bakery from nothing, she said. When he died, I thought if I could make it work, make it thrive, maybe it would mean his life mattered. Maybe it would mean I mattered. And does it? Claire considered this, really considered it perhaps for the first time. Most days, it just makes me feel tired. Tired and scared. She stopped, surprised by her own honesty. And alone. Yeah, Owen said softly. Alone. They sat in companionable silence, two strangers who had somehow found themselves in the one place, where pretense was impossible and truth was the only currency that mattered. The amber emergency lighting cast gentle shadows across their faces, creating an intimacy that felt both accidental and inevitable. You know, Claire said eventually, for a terrible situation, this is not entirely terrible company. Owen surprised himself by laughing. Actually laughing? Not the polite chuckle he used in board meetings, but genuine amusement that seemed to bubble up from a place he had forgotten existed. You know what the crazy part is? This is the most honest conversation I have had in years. Maybe that says something about the people you usually talk to. Maybe. It says something about the person I usually am, Claire. Studied his profile in the golden light. And who is that person? Owen was quiet for a long moment. Someone who is very good at fixing other people's problems and terrible at facing his own. The words hung between them, loaded with the kind of significance that made the small elevator feel even smaller, but in a way that was oddly comforting rather than claustrophobic. Their conversation continued, each revelation building on the last, creating a foundation of understanding that neither of them had expected to find on a random Tuesday morning. The emergency lighting cast a warm glow around them as Owen and Claire settled into the strange comfort of their unplanned sanctuary. An hour had passed since the elevator stopped, and the rescue team had called to say they were working on the mechanical issue but needed more time. Tell me about your father, Claire said, pulling her knees up to her chest. What was he like? Owen leaned his head back against the elevator wall, a small smile playing at his lips. Brilliant, demanding, impossible to please. He paused, his smile fading. He built Sterling Technologies from a garage startup into a major player in software development. Everyone respected him. Most people feared him a little. Did you fear him? I spent my entire childhood trying to earn a smile from him that was not attached to an achievement. A grade, an award, a competition one. Owen's voice held old wounds that had never quite healed. When he died, I inherited the company and discovered that running it meant becoming him, making the same ruthless decisions, prioritizing profit over people, measuring success in quarterly reports instead of human impact. Claire watched emotions play across his face, seeing the conflict between duty and desire written in every line. Is that what today's phone call was about? Becoming someone you do not want to be? Owen turned to look at her, struck by her perceptiveness. There is a merger on the table. It would increase our market share by 30% and make our investors very happy. It would also eliminate 200 jobs from the company we are acquiring. People with families, mortgages, lives built around the security of employment I promised them. What does Owen want to do? There was that question again. The one that cut through all his carefully constructed justifications and forced him to confront the truth he had been avoiding. Owen wants to find a different way. Owen wants to restructure the deals so we keep those employees and maybe make slightly less profit. Owen wants to build something his father never did. A company that measures success by how many lives it improves, not just how much wealth it generates. Then why do you not do that? Because I am terrified of failing. Because every board member will tell me I am making an emotional decision instead of a business decision. Because my father's voice in my head keeps asking what kind of weak leader puts compassion ahead of capitalism. Claire reached over and took his hand, her fingers small and warm against his. Your father is gone, Owen. his voice does not get a vote anymore. The simple truth of her words hit Owen like a revelation. 5 years of trying to honor a dead man's vision, and it had taken a stranger in a broken elevator to point out that he was living for a ghost. "How did you get so wise?" he asked softly. 3 years of making every mistake possible while trying to save a failing business. Claire's laugh held no bitterness. Only the hard-won wisdom of someone who had learned difficult lessons. "I spent the first year after Dad died trying to run the bakery exactly as he had. Same recipes, same customers, same routes. I was so focused on preserving his legacy that I nearly destroyed it. What changed? I ran out of money. Had to make a choice between paying rent on the commercial kitchen or making van payments. I chose the van, which meant I lost access to Dad's professional ovens and had to figure out how to bake everything in my apartment kitchen using whatever equipment I could afford." Claire's eyes grew distant with the memory. "I was furious. Felt like I was betraying everything he had built. But you know what happened? My products got better. Turned out that fancy equipment was hiding the fact that I had been following his recipes without understanding them. When I had to improvise with basic tools, I actually learned how to bake. Really bake, not just follow instructions." "So losing the commercial kitchen saved your business?" "It taught me that honoring someone's memory does not mean preserving everything exactly as they left it. Sometimes love means taking what they gave you and making it your own." Owen absorbed this, feeling something shift in his chest. A loosening of the grip his father's expectations had maintained for so long. "I had a best friend named Marcus," he said quietly. "We started Sterling Technologies together right out of college. While I focused on the technical side, Marcus handled relationships. Clients loved him. Employees loved him. He had this gift for making everyone feel valued." Claire heard the past tense and understood that this story did not have a happy ending. 6 years ago, we disagreed about the direction of the company. Dad wanted to take us public, do a major stock offering that would make us all wealthy beyond imagination. Marcus wanted to stay private, grow slowly, maintain control over our company culture. They fought constantly. Owen's voice grew thick with emotion. "Dad had a heart attack during one of their arguments. Died right there in the office. And suddenly I was in charge, grieving and guilty and completely unprepared. The board pushed hard for the public offering. Said it was what my father would have wanted. Marcus begged me to wait, to honor our original vision." "What did you do?" "I went public. Told myself I was honoring Dad's wishes, but really, I was just too scared to trust my own judgment. The stock offering made us incredibly wealthy. It also changed everything about how we operated. Suddenly we had shareholders to please, quarterly earnings to hit, analysts questioning every decision." Owen's hands clenched into fists. Marcus hated it. Hated what we were becoming. He started pushing back against board decisions, advocating for employees over profits, trying to maintain the company culture we had built. The board saw him as a liability. They pressured me to buy him out. Claire squeezed his hand, sensing what was coming. I did it. Told myself it was best for the company, that Marcus would be happier pursuing other ventures. Offered him a generous buyout package and ended our partnership. Owen's voice broke. He took the money and invested it in a startup with better values than ours. Threw himself into work trying to build what we should have built together. Had a stroke from stress and overwork 18 months later. Died before reaching 40. Oh, Owen. The last conversation we had, he told me I had sold my soul for my father's approval. Said I would spend the rest of my life making money and wondering why it felt empty. He was right. They sat in silence, the weight of his confession filling the small space. Claire did not offer empty reassurances or try to minimize his guilt. She simply held his hand and shared the burden of his grief. "You cannot carry him forever," she said finally. "Marcus would not want you to." "How do you know?" "Because people who love us want us to live, not just survive." Claire's voice was gentle but firm. "My dad's last words were asking me to remember that I am allowed to be happy. That success is not worth much if it comes at the cost of joy." I think Marcus would say something similar. Owen turned to face her fully, seeing in her eyes a reflection of his own pain and hope. How do we do it? How do we let go of the people we have lost without betraying their memory? I think we honor them by becoming more ourselves, not less. By learning from their mistakes and their wisdom, by building lives they would be proud of, even if those lives look different than what they imagined. The rescue team's voices echoed from somewhere above them. Technical discussions about hydraulic systems and safety protocols. Their time in this suspended moment was running out, Claire said urgently, aware that the real world was about to intrude. Can I see you again? After we get out of here? She smiled, and the expression transformed her entire face. I would like that tomorrow. Dinner. I have an evening farmer's market booth, but I could meet you after. Around 8? Perfect. Owen pulled out his phone to exchange numbers, then paused. Actually, come to my office tomorrow afternoon instead. 3 o'clock. I want to show you something. Claire raised an eyebrow. Mysterious. Just trust me. The elevator shuddered, and machinery groaned back to life. They rose slowly toward the 37th floor, both acutely aware that their sanctuary was dissolving. The doors opened to reveal a crowd of concerned building staff, emergency responders, and curious onlookers. Owen and Claire stood, suddenly self-conscious about the intimacy they had shared. In the harsh fluorescent lighting of the hallway, the magic of the elevator felt fragile, like a dream that might evaporate upon waking. Your delivery, Owen said, helping her gather her boxes. You should still make it. Thank you. Claire clutched her boxers, suddenly unsure how to say goodbye to someone who had become important in the space of 2 hours. Owen, about tomorrow, 3 o'clock, he said firmly. Sterling Technologies, 37th floor. Ask for me at reception. She nodded, then impulsively stood on her toes and kissed his cheek. Thank you for the conversation. Owen watched her hurry toward the corporate offices, his hand touching the spot where her lips had brushed his skin. The rescue team captain approached with paperwork to sign, but Owen barely registered the questions. His mind was already on tomorrow, on the decision he needed to make. On the woman who had reminded him that success could mean something more than profit margins. He pulled out his phone and called his business partner, Preston, about that merger. I am restructuring the deal. We keep the employees, or we walk away. The stunned silence on the other end was deeply satisfying that evening. Claire stood in her tiny apartment kitchen, surrounded by the tools of her trade, and let herself hope. Not the desperate hope of someone trying to save a failing dream, but the cautious optimism of someone who had just glimpsed a different kind of future. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Thank you for today. You reminded me that some things are worth more than money. See you tomorrow. Oz. She saved the number under a contact name that made her smile. Elevator Owen. For the first time in 3 years. Claire went to bed, thinking not about bills or failures, or her father's disappointed ghost, but about storm cloud eyes, and honest conversations, and the possibility that maybe, just maybe, she deserved something good. Owen sat in his home office, staring at merger documents that suddenly seemed less important than they had that morning. He thought about Marcus, about his father, about the weight of expectations he had been carrying for too long. Then he opened his laptop and began drafting a proposal that would change everything. A restructure that prioritized people over profits. A vision for Sterling Technologies that honored his father's ambition while embracing Marcus's values. A plan that would probably cost him board support and investor confidence. A plan that felt, for the first time in years, authentically his own. The rain had stopped, and moonlight streamed through his windows, illuminating the path forward with unexpected clarity. Tomorrow he would show Claire what her wisdom had inspired. Tomorrow he would start becoming the man he wanted to be instead of the ghost his father had left behind. Tomorrow everything would change. Claire arrived at Sterling Technologies at exactly 3 o'clock, her heart beating faster than the elevator ride warranted. She had spent the morning at a farmer's market, her usual spot near the fountain, selling cupcakes and Danish pastries to regulars who knew her by name. The work had been good, the sales decent, but her mind had been elsewhere. On storm cloud eyes and honest confessions, on a man who carried burdens he never asked for, The receptionist smiled warmly when Claire gave her name. Mr. Sterling is expecting you. Conference room B, down the hall to your right. Claire followed the directions, her second-hand dress suddenly feeling inadequate among the sleek corporate surroundings. But when she opened the conference room door, her insecurity evaporated. The room had been transformed. A long table held carefully arranged displays of business plans, financial projections, and architectural renderings. But what caught her attention was Owen, standing by the window in casual jeans and a button-down shirt. Looking younger and more relaxed than he had in his suit yesterday. "You came," he said. Relief evident in his voice. "You sounded mysterious." "I was curious." Owen gestured to the displays. "I want to show you what you inspired. What our conversation helped me see." He walked her through his vision, speaking with an enthusiasm she had not heard yesterday. A restructured merger that retained all 200 employees. A new division of Sterling Technologies focused on developing affordable software solutions for small businesses and nonprofits. A profit-sharing model that gave employees stake in the company's success. "This is what Marcus wanted," Owen said quietly. "What I should have fought for 6 years ago. A company that measures success by positive impact, not just profit margins." Claire studied the projections, her bakery experience giving her enough business knowledge to understand what she was seeing. "This will cost you significant short-term profits. Yes, your board will fight you, almost certainly. Your investors might pull out, some will. Way. Owen turned to face her fully. "But I realized something yesterday, trapped in that elevator with you. I have been so afraid of failing that I forgot to ask myself what success actually looks like. This feels like success, even if it costs me everything." Claire felt tears prick her eyes. "Owen, this is beautiful. But are you sure? You would be risking so much. I have spent 5 years playing it safe and being miserable. Maybe it is time to risk something that actually matters." Took a step closer. "You taught me that. You risk everything every single day for a dream you believe in. That takes more courage than any boardroom decision I have ever made." "My dream is failing," Claire said honestly. "I am 3 months behind on payments. My van died yesterday. I barely make enough to cover basic expenses. Some days I wonder if courage and stupidity are the same thing. They're not." Owen's voice was firm. "Courage is knowing the odds and choosing to fight anyway. Stupidity is not knowing the odds exist. You are the bravest person I have met." The words hung between them, loaded with meaning beyond their surface. Claire felt something shift in her chest, like a door opening to possibilities she had been too afraid to imagine. "Why did you want me to see this?" she asked softly. "Because you helped me find it. Because I wanted you to know that our conversation mattered. That you matter." Owen paused, vulnerability clear in his expression. "And because I wanted to ask if you would have dinner with me tonight, not as a thank you, but as a first date with someone I very much want to know better." Claire's smile was radiant. "I would love that." They had dinner at a small Italian restaurant tucked away in a neighborhood neither frequented. The conversation flowed as easily as it had in the elevator, but with new layers of possibility. They talked about favorite books and childhood dreams, about the small moments that shaped them and the fears that drove them forward. Owen learned that Claire sang off-key in her kitchen while baking, that she donated die-old pastries to a homeless shelter every week, and that she had once wanted to open a teaching kitchen for underprivileged kids. Claire discovered that Owen played guitar but had not touched one in years, that he volunteered at a youth coding camp every summer, and that he had once dreamed of developing educational software for rural schools before corporate demands consumed his time. "What if we could do both?" Claire said suddenly, her eyes bright with inspiration. "Your educational software dream and my teaching kitchen idea?" Owen leaned forward, intrigued. "What do you mean?" "What if there was a space where kids could learn practical skills like cooking and baking, but also learn the business and technology side? Recipe development, cost analysis, online marketing, point-of-sale systems, real-world applications for math, science, and technology. A hybrid learning center." Owen's mind was already racing with possibilities. Combining hands-on vocational training with technology education, that is brilliant. It would need funding, space, equipment. Claire's enthusiasm dimmed slightly. All things I definitely do not have, but things that could be developed. Through partnerships, grants, community support. Owen reached across the table and took her hand. Claire, what if this is what we are supposed to build together? Not my company or your bakery, but something completely new that combines our passions. The idea was thrilling and terrifying in equal measure. Claire had spent 3 years fighting alone to preserve her father's legacy. The thought of building something new with someone else felt like both betrayal and liberation. I am scared, she admitted. But maybe that means it is worth doing. They left the restaurant walking close together through streets illuminated by old-fashioned street lamps. The October air was crisp, carrying the promise of winter and change. When Owen walked Claire to her bus stop, neither wanted the evening to end. Can I see you again tomorrow? He asked. I have the van in the shop. Was supposed to get an estimate on repairs? Claire's expression clouded, which I probably cannot afford. What if I came with you? Moral support. She looked at him carefully, searching for pity or condescension. She found only genuine care. Okay, but Owen, I need you to understand something. I cannot be your project. I cannot be the struggling baker you rescue. If we are going to do this, whatever this becomes, I need to be your equal partner, not someone you save. You are not my project, Owen said firmly. You are the person who saved me first, who reminded me I could be more than my father's shadow. If anything, I am worried about being your project, Claire laughed, the sound warming the cool night air. Deal. No rescuing, just partnership. They sealed the agreement with a kiss, tentative at first, then deepening with the recognition of two people finding something unexpected and precious. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling. Tomorrow, then, Owen said. Tomorrow. The next morning brought complications neither had anticipated. Owen arrived at his office to find an emergency board meeting already in session. Preston sat at the head of the conference table, surrounded by 5 other board members, all wearing expressions of barely contained fury. Owen, sit down, Preston said coldly. We need to discuss your unauthorized restructuring of the merger terms. Owen remained standing. The restructure was within my authority as CEO. I informed you of my decision yesterday. You torpedoed a deal worth $40 million in immediate shareholder value, board member. Catherine Walsh said sharply. The acquiring company's executives are furious. They are threatening to walk away entirely, and they walk away. I am not eliminating 200 jobs to pad quarterly earnings. This is not about one decision, Preston interrupted. This is about a pattern of behavior, emotional decision-making, prioritizing sentiment over strategy. Your father built this company on rational business principles. You are destroying his legacy with idealistic nonsense. Owen felt the familiar pressure of expectations and criticism, but underneath it, something new, a core of certainty that had been missing before. My father built a successful company, but he also built one where employees were afraid to speak up, where innovation was discouraged if it disrupted profit margins, where success was measured solely in money. I am not destroying his legacy. I am evolving it. You are destroying shareholder value, Catherine said. And if you cannot see that, perhaps you are not the right person to lead this company. The threat hung in the air, clear and unmistakable. Owen looked around the table at faces he had known for years. People who had worked with his father, who saw Owen as a pale imitation of a greater man. People who would never allow him to transform Sterling Technologies into something better. Then perhaps I am not, Owen said quietly. The room erupted. Preston jumped to his feet. Catherine began talking over to other board members. And chaos reigned for several minutes until Owen raised his hand for silence. I am not resigning, he clarified. But I recognize that this board and I have fundamentally different visions for the company's future. So I am proposing a different solution. I will buy out the majority shareholders who disagree with my direction. Take the company private again. Return to the model Marcus and I originally built, where we answer to our values rather than quarterly earnings reports. With what money? Preston laughed harshly. You would need 200 million minimum to buy out enough shares to take us private. You do not have that kind of liquid capital. No, Owen admitted. But I have stock options, property, and enough collateral to secure the financing. It will take time, but it is possible. You would risk everything, Catherine said, her tone shifting from anger to something almost like concern. Your personal wealth, your financial security, your entire future. For what? Idealistic principles that may not even work? Owen thought about Claire, about courage and stupidity, about knowing the odds and fighting anyway, for a company I can be proud of. For employees who deserve security, for a legacy that is mine, not my father's shadow. Yes, I would risk everything for that. The meeting ended with no resolution, but battle lines clearly drawn. Owen had 30 days to present a viable buyout proposal or face a vote of no confidence. He walked out of the conference room feeling simultaneously liberated and terrified. His phone rang. Claire. Hey, I am at the mechanic. The estimate is not good. 5,000 in repairs. I do not have it, Owen. I am going to lose the van. Owen heard the tears she was trying to hide and felt his heart clench. I am coming. Stay there. We will figure something out. When he arrived at the garage 20 minutes later, Claire was sitting on a bench outside, her face streaked with tears she had finally allowed to fall. It is over, she said simply. Without the van, I cannot do deliveries. Without deliveries, I lose my remaining contracts. Without contracts, I cannot afford the commercial kitchen rental. My father's dream dies because I could not save it. Owen sat beside her, resisting the urge to immediately offer solutions. To write a check that would fix her immediate problem, but potentially undermine her independence? Tell me what you need, he said instead. Not what I can give you. What you actually need to decide. Claire looked at him, surprised by the question. I need to know if I am fighting for the right thing. If preserving Dad's exact business model matters more than honoring the spirit of what he taught me, if letting go of the van means giving up or means making space for something new, what did your father teach you? That feeding people is an act of love. That everyone deserves access to beautiful, delicious food. That building community matters more than building wealth. Claire wiped her eyes. The van was his tool for doing that. But maybe it does not have to be mine. What would your tool look like? Claire was quiet for a long moment, staring at the broken van that represented everything she had been trying to preserve. Then, slowly, a smile began to form. What if I let the van go? Used whatever I could get for it as seed money. Focused entirely on the farmer's market booth and building a catering business that operates out of rented kitchen space. Smaller scale, more manageable overhead, room to actually breathe and create instead of constantly scrambling. That sounds sustainable. That sounds terrifying. It feels like admitting defeat. Or admitting reality, Owen said gently. Sometimes wisdom is knowing when to change course instead of going down with the ship. Claire laughed through her tears. Did you just compare my father's bakery van to the Titanic? Too much. Maybe a little. But she was smiling now, and Owen saw the moment when grief began transforming into possibility. They spent the afternoon making plans. Practical, realistic plans for downsizing Claire's operation into something manageable. For building slowly instead of desperately. For honoring legacy through innovation rather than preservation. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, they sat together on that garage bench and talked about dreams that had room to breathe, about building something new from the pieces of what came before, about partnership and courage and the terrifying freedom of choosing yourself. I presented my buyout proposal to the board today, Owen said. They gave me 30 days to make it happen, or face removal as CEO. Can you do it? Raise that much money in 30 days? Honestly, I do not know. But I am going to try. And if I fail, at least I fail trying to build something I believe in. Claire took his hand. Then we fail or succeed together. Your company restructure, my business reimagining, our dream of a learning center. All of it. Partners. Partners, Owen agreed. They kissed as the last light faded from the sky. Two people who had found each other in a broken elevator and were now choosing to build something beautiful from their respective ruins. The future was uncertain. The odds were challenging. But for the first time in years, both felt the thrill of being fully alive. 3 months later, Sterling Technologies became a private company again. The buyout had required Owen to sell his house, liquidate investments, and take on significant debt. But the company was his, restructured around values that honored both his father's ambition and Marcus's heart. Claire's reimagined. Bakery business thrived at farmers markets and through small-scale catering. She had let go of the van, let go of the exact replica of her father's dream, and discovered that his true legacy was not the business model but the love behind it. And together, they broke ground on the Bennett Sterling Learning Center, a space where kids could learn to bake and code, to build businesses and community, to dream bigger than their circumstances suggested possible. On the day of the grand opening, Owen and Claire stood together, cutting the ribbon, surrounded by employees, students, and community members who had become family. Mrs. Walsh, the mechanic's wife, who had offered Claire tissues that desperate day, was there. Preston had even shown up, grudgingly admitting that Owen's vision was working. You know what the best part is? Claire whispered to Owen as children rushed past them toward the teaching kitchen. What? We are not carrying ghosts anymore. We are building futures. Owen pulled her close, kissing her temple. Best elevator malfunction ever. Claire laughed, the sound ringing clear and true through the space they had built together, a space born from broken elevators and broken dreams, from honest conversations and courageous choices, from two people who had learned that sometimes the best way to honor the past was to bravely create something new. Malfunction ever, she agreed, and surrounded by the beautiful chaos of community and creation, they stepped forward into a future they had chosen together. Not perfect, not easy, but authentically theirs.